Hello everyone. This week's parsha is Parshat Vayigash. It's the penultimate parsha to Sefer Breshit. That means it's the second to last. And we have the brothers and Yosef being reunited. And of course, there's a lesson here to take away. I do not remember who I heard this idea from, but it was a beautiful idea, and I'd like to share it. So this being really towards the end of Sefer Breshit, like what's the overall theme of Sefer Breshit? Now there are a number of answers to that question, but I'll share one. So if we go to the beginning of Sefer Breshit, we're in Parshat Breshit, and we have Adam and Chava, and they're kicked out of the garden, and they have children, Cain and Hevel, Cain and Abel, and Cain kills Hevel. So the first brothers ever recorded in the Torah, and one kills the other. And so God comes down and he says, Cain, where is Hevel your brother? And Cain responds, V'yomer lo yadati, hashomer achi anochi, am I my brother's keeper? Not only I've heard is, the entire Sefer Breshit is a response to that question. What do I mean? So we see what happened with the first case of brothers. One killed the other. That's not very good. There really can't get much worse than that. But do things improve? The answer is yes. Over time, things seem to get better. That is to say, the next case of famous brothers that seem to not get along very much are Yitzchak and Yishmael. That is to say, we know that Yishmael was about 13 years old when Yitzchak was born. And Yishmael was playing with Yitzchak, which meant he was shooting arrows. Says Rashi, I'm pretty sure quoting the Midrash, that meant that Yishmael was shooting arrows at Yitzchak, just pretending to play with him. Yitzchak was kind of jumping around trying to avoid the arrows, but really Yishmael was trying to kill him. So that's clearly not very good. We seem to have more of a Cain and Hevel relationship here. But we see at least towards the end, at the end of Parshat Chayei Sarah, we're in chapter 25, verse 8, that Vayiva v'yamad Avram, right? Avram ended up dying, and the puzzle goes on. And then verse 9, Vayperu oto Yitzchak v'Yishmael banav. Wow, so we see that Yitzchak and Yishmael buried him together. That's to say, some people will let their disputes carry on, even in the face of family tragedy. Thank God Yitzchak and Yishmael were able to kind of get over it. They came together to bury their father. So we're already doing better than Cain and Hevel. Okay. That being said, that's still not very good. You know what I'm saying? Like, to have brothers come together for a parent's death, that in itself is almost a tragedy. The fact that that's what it takes. Then we move on. And of course, the next famous brothers, maybe the most famous of the brothers with a dispute, is Yaakov and Esav. Of course, Yaakov and Esav have trouble from the very beginning. Some say from the womb, and certainly as they grow up, with the selling of the birthright, the whole situation with the blessings, that doesn't look very good. And so finally, Yaakov had to escape after he got the blessings from his father, and he had to run away for like 20 years or so. But as he came back, he was very nervous about this confrontation with Esav. So Esav is coming towards him, and Yaakov doesn't really know exactly what's going to happen. And there's a lot going on in those psukim. And then we finally see when they're reunited in chapter 32, verse 4. Chapter 33, verse 4. Vayaretz Esav likrato, right? So Esav runs towards him, and then what happens? Vechabkeu, and he hugs him. Vayipol al tzavaro, and he falls on his neck. Veishakeu, and Esav kisses Yaakov vayivku, and they cry together. Then Esav, of course, raises his eyes, and he sees Yaakov's whole family, and he says, "Who are these people?" And Yaakov says, "This is my family." And we see there's this cheerful reunion. Now again, there's a way to learn those psukim, but just the Pashup Pshat seems to be that there's this kind of cheerful, loving reunion with Esav just got over his anger, at least for a little bit, at Yaakov, and they really came together. And Esav wants to accompany Yaakov and walk with him and bring him to safety. But ultimately, Yaakov is like, look, it's okay, I'll be fine, let's just go on our merry way. So you see, there wasn't the need for a death of a parent to bring them together. There's this cheerful reunion. Ultimately, they need to be separated to kind of keep things at bay. You know what I'm saying? Like, everything is nice, for a little bit, but then eventually they kind of need to separate to keep the peace. So again, we see this kind of slow, gradual movement towards appeasement with the brothers. Then, of course, we have Yosef and his brothers. Yosef's brothers, of course, sold Yosef into slavery. That still doesn't seem to be going very well. And although there are reasons why they did it, ultimately they sold their brother into slavery. And now, finally, this week's parsha, we have, Yosef messing with them and Yehuda confronting Yosef and trying to figure out what is going on here. And then Yosef finally admits, Ani Yosef. And the brothers are completely stunned. They are literally speechless. If you see from those from the beginning of those psukim. If you look at chapter 44, verse 3, they couldn't respond to him because they were stunned. You see literally several psukim, at least 10 psukim, where Yosef is speaking to them because his brothers are just completely speechless, they can't say anything. And then finally, Yosef falls on Binyamin's neck, his brother, and they cry, and Binyamin cries. And then finally, in verse 15, and then he kissed all of his brothers, and he cries over them. And then finally, his brothers were able to speak. They were stunned for a good 13 psukim, but finally they were able to say something after Yosef kissed them. And then, of course, we see that there's this tearful, beautiful reunion. And ultimately, it doesn't lead to their separation like it did with Yaakov and Esau, but rather, Yosef is like, please come down, bring our father down, Yaakov Avinu, and you'll settle here in Egypt, and I'll take care of you, and everything will be fine, and I'll feed you. And you see, finally, the way this whole sefer ends is an answer to that question. Hashomer achi anochi? Am I my brother's keeper? And the answer is yes. Of course you are. Good Shabbos.